Salutations, respected viewers. I'm in Greyfriars churchyard in Edinburgh. Behind me is the grave of perhaps the most famous canine to stalk the earth. That is Greyfriars Bobby. So Bobby was the pet of a night watchman of Edinburgh, bit like one down from a policeman, a bit like a security guard, a certain John Gray. Bobby was a Skye Terrier by breed. Anyhow, his master succumbed to tuberculosis in 1858. That lung disease was incurable in those days, coughing up blood, especially if he lived in damp conditions. And his master was almost penurious, so he had to rent some damp tenement room. Anyway, so his master was laid to rest in this graveyard. Then Bobby came along and he sat on his master's grave, and the church warden attempted to chase him away, but he always slinked back. And eventually they showed compassion towards this hound and built a little shelter and fed him. His story became widely known around Edinburgh as a sterling example of dog-like fidelity. His constancy is something we would do well to emulate as Homo sapiens, and he was said to have spent every single night on his master's grave, no matter how inclement the weather. So eventually he passed to the great big park in the sky in 1872, and they gave him the exceptional honour of being buried in this churchyard. He couldn't be buried in actual consecrated ground because it was illegal to bury animals in consecrated ground. So there he lies. He's the subject of numerous stories, and he did a 1961 Hollywood motion picture, which has got, I think, a slightly fictionalized account of it, such as his master being a farm labourer for a while. There are people who probe the stories and some have cast doubt on the veracity of the tale, but you don't have to ruin it. That is Greyfriars Bobby, and the church, yes indeed it is Greyfriars, because centuries ago there were monks here. Monks are called brother, not just by each other, by anyone. And the word brother in French is frère, so from that the English word friar came, meaning a brother, as in a monk. And so they wore different habits, as in different clothes, like a robe, almost like a dress these monks wore. So some wore brown, some wore black, some wore white, some wore grey, according to their order. There are many orders of monks, like Benedictine monks, Franciscan monks, Carmelite monks, Augustinian monks, and so on. And so a certain order wore grey habits. That's what's called Greyfriars. There was an abbey here, as in a house where the monks lived and prayed. However, the Reformation came to Scotland in 1560. No more monks, no more abbeys, so it became an ordinary church, no longer an abbey. That's what's called Greyfriars to this day. Anyway, there's an ale house just around the corner. We're looking at the rear of it here. That's the other side of that is a pub called Greyfriars Bobby, in honour of this most faithful hound whose tale I just described to you. Okay, I'll switch it off now.